Vintage Church, it's really good to be with you. My friend Shaun Cross is here, pastor at Vintage Church Durham. Wanted to take a couple of minutes just to introduce him. Shaun, you and I have been in the same circles for 11, 12 years, working together, know each other well. Tell me a little bit about you, about your family, about your kids.
Yeah, so I grew up just outside of D.C. in Northern Virginia, and I met my wife, Melissa, 20 years ago at Campbell University. So she's from New Jersey. We met there. We've been married for 16 years. We've got 3 kids, a 13-year-old Hazel, a 10-year-old Anderson, and a 7-year-old Milo. And so, yeah.
Man, that is a busy life with those age kids and moving from D.C. down to here. So thanks for making it through those time periods. You've done a pretty amazing thing. Like I know the last 5 or 6 years of your life, God's used you in spectacular ways. So will you tell us a little bit about what you were doing in D.C., about your church, just anything that would help us get to know you a little bit?
Yeah, so we were on staff at a church. I was on staff at a church in Angier, North Carolina, actually, and we felt like the Lord called us to plant a church in an urban center, and for me that was home in D.C., and we wanted to plant a multi-ethnic sort of a church that reached the nations and also did justice in the city. And so we went up to D.C. about 6 years ago. We planted the church about 5 years ago, and it was just gathering people, trying to preach and proclaim the gospel and do justice and mercy in the city.
Yeah, that's awesome. D.C. is a tough place to plant, and the Lord used you in pretty amazing ways. I learned from you up there, watched some of your sermons and teachings, and just really blessed. So excited that you're part of Vintage Church now. Tell us something that we might not know about you. If I didn't ask you that question, anything about family or about Shaun in particular? Do you have a weird hobby? Do you do something that maybe you can embarrass yourself? I don't know.
Embarrassment. I'm a super sci-fi nerd. Like I love Star Trek, Doctor Who, Star Wars, all of that. I'm about all of that. In terms of family, perhaps the weirdest thing is that our youngest son Milo was born in the van on Highway 55 on the way to the birthing center in Chapel Hill. So,
are you kidding? You got to tell a little bit more of that story. How'd that happen?
Yeah, so that was on me. Melissa was clearly having Milo. We should have stayed home. We're like, we can make it from our house in Fuquay to the birthing center in Chapel Hill. Anyone who knows anything about that is laughing. And
is that like 55 minutes?
Yeah, it was a hike, and I was trying to sort of coach her while we were driving and help her calm down. And eventually, she just told me like, this is a real situation. You've got to pull over. And I did nothing. I went back, and she had delivered Milo, and I just sort of picked him up. And we don't need any more details.
Yeah, it's amazing. I knew Melissa was a phenomenal person, but that just raises the bar all that much more. All right, 2 more questions. The first is most important. You got to get this one right. So just don't blow this. There potentially 3 sport teams in the Triangle. Potentially 2 definite sports teams, 2 definite universities, UNC and State. I forget the third one. But what team have you adopted, or do you plan to adopt? What school is like going to be your place?
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that actually the other day, because even at the height of, let's say, Carolina football, Florida State beat them. So who needs to adopt when you have the Seminoles? And that's where we'll stay.
There probably should be like a question on the interview process about this, but it's too late for that. So, all right. So last question. Durham's a phenomenal place. We love it. The city is fantastic. Vintage Church Durham is just this sweet body of people that love Jesus. And so do you have any hopes, or do you have any dreams? What are you excited about being pastor at Vintage Church Durham?
Well, first of all, just to be pastoring Vintage Church Durham, I'm really excited to get to know everyone, to be able to do life together and to see one another grow in the Lord and Jesus, and to disciple each other into good works. And then in terms of Durham, I've been reading some of the history of Durham, and it's a good place to preach the gospel, to do justice, and to work towards ethnic conciliation. And so I'm excited to see Vintage Church Durham and my family and the city of Durham all sort of come together with the Spirit of the Lord moving for His glory.
Yeah, and that's really what you did in DC. And so I'm excited to see God bring that same ministry and call to fruition. Y'all, this is Shaun Cross, his amazing wife, Melissa, their 3 kids. Please meet Shaun, greet him. You can reach out, shaun.cross@vintagenc.com. Really thrilled that your family's here.
Yeah,
Thanks, Shaun.
It's good to be here. Thank you.